Hi, this is Sandra Cho with Pointwealth Capital Management, and today I'm going to be going over financial tips I wish I knew when I was young. And I will have to say that this webinar is being recorded. So if you object to being recorded, please jump off now, let us know, and we can always email you a copy of this presentation. So first things first, we're going to be going over investing basics, budgeting, debt management, saving for retirement, and then we're going to be going over some other tips, and then we're going to open it up for questions. Investing basics. So first and foremost, having a foundation in order to have pave the way for a successful financial future, I cannot stress this enough. It's just so important just to have a basic understanding. It can be very stressful not knowing how to invest, where to get started, how to save, how to budget. But you have to start somewhere, and once you get a grasp on it, it becomes less stressful, right? Once you know something, it's less taxing and stressful on you. So first of all, save, right? You can't invest what you just don't have. And it's so important to be able to save. And the foundation of that is to budget. We're going to be going over that a little bit later. Once you save and you're able to invest even a little bit, I mean, it could even be $50 a month. Or it could be, your, birthday presents that you get in cash. Whether it's bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, whether it's Christmas money. If you are able to save a little bit of that, it can be so important, and it can grow exponentially, because if you are young, your money has that much more time to compound and to grow. So for example, if you were to invest $400 a month at age 25, you could have $1 million by the time you're 65 years old. If you even invested $100, think about what that could do, 250, but that's at age 25. If you were to start investing when, say, you were 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, you would have that much more, when you're even a little bit older, enough to potentially put it down on a house, for example. Now, the next thing we're going to be going over is diversification. And I wanted to stress the difference between diversification and asset allocation. Diversification is specifically having stocks, bonds, and cash. Stocks, bonds, and cash. You need some cash because you need to be able to, provide for those emergency situations. Maybe your car breaks down and whatnot. You want to have some in bonds because that's that kind of midterm, interim where, you might have a larger emergency. And, before I would have said, hey, maybe it doesn't make sense to have, that much in, say, for example, bonds when interest rates were low. But right now you can get 4.4% just in, a bond, just in midterm bonds, 4.4%. And bonds actually appreciated 4.4% so far year to date, which means right now, just year to date, the year isn't even over yet, you'd have a 8.8% upside in anything that you held in bonds from January 1st. That's amazing. That's almost stock-like return being in bonds. Now, let's go on to asset allocation. So there's stocks, bonds, and cash for diversification. Asset allocation is often confused with diversification. Asset allocation is having different kinds of investments. So oftentimes people think that it is, asset allocation is actually diversification. That's not the case. Asset allocation is having every different type of investment. So for example, not just high-flying tech stocks like NVIDIA, but having some, value stocks or smaller cap stocks like Krispy Kreme. Who doesn't love Krispy Kreme, right? And also having, some not just tech stocks, but maybe having things like Procter and Gamble. I mean, if you use toothpaste, then, that's going to be a bellwether. And those are actually, those value stocks and the other parts of the stock market right now are actually going up more than these, very tech-oriented AI stocks like Apple, for example. Okay. International is also very important. In fact, international stocks have actually outpaced US stocks. So they're really coming ahead, and it's important to be diversified since 70% of all global growth is outside of the US. Investment vehicles, understanding the pros of having different types of investments, different types of investment vehicles that are asset allocated. So for example, you can have individual stocks, you can have individual bonds, but you can also have stock and bond ETFs, which are also known as exchange traded funds, which have a lower cost associated with them compared to, say, mutual funds. But stock and bond mutual funds have their own pros. They are generally actively managed. Not all mutual funds are the same. Not all ETFs are the same. It's important to understand the differences. And once again, it's important to have different asset allocated ETFs, mutual funds, or stocks. It can be very difficult to be asset allocated and diversified in individual stocks if you don't have a large amount of money invested in it, 250,000, $500,000 or more. It can be difficult. It's much more easy to be diversified and asset allocated when you have ETFs or actively managed mutual funds. So if you want to learn more about that, please feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to give a free consultation. Risk tolerance. It's important to know whether you are conservative, balanced, or growth. Because at the end of the day, if you are inside more conservative, regardless of how old you are, and the market, if you go 100% in stocks, which is considered more growth oriented, and the stock market becomes very volatile and goes up and down, and you get scared and you pull out your money, you're typically going to be selling when the market is down, and that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. You want to be able to weather the ups and downs. And that starts with understanding and knowing yourself and understanding how much volatility, how much up and down you can take. If you're on a roller coaster and you jump off when you're, or you're still on the ride, you're going to get very, very hurt. So you want to make sure that you're able to stay on that roller coaster ride. So if you're conservative and the market is going like this, but you're conservative and you're in a conservative investment allocation and your investments are going like this, you can weather that. But if you're conservative and the market's going like this and you can't take it, like I mentioned before, you're gonna get hurt. You might pull out at the wrong time and you might sell low. You definitely want to be able to buy low and sell when it's high. So it's important to know that. And we can, if you reach out to us, we can send you a risk tolerance questionnaire so you can know whether you are conservative, balanced, or growth. Generally speaking, if you're younger, if you're able to hold on and have a more growth-oriented portfolio, that generally is better. You generally can have more, you will have more volatility, but if you can weather it, you're generally going to make more over the longer term. But that doesn't mean that just because you're younger, you are going to be able to be growth, right? So it's just about knowing who you are. And invest for the long term, right? Try your absolute best to hang on through the bad times because you will be rewarded through the good times. And time in the market beats timing the market. And what that means is, the longer you stay in, the more you potentially can make versus trying to just, figure out what the market's going to do. Listen, the smartest people in the world have tried to figure out what the market's going to do. And sometimes the market isn't logical, or most of the time, actually, it isn't logical. So trying to time the market, you might be able to time it getting in, but you might not be able to time it getting out, right? Because you got to do both and you got to do it consistently. And no one has been able to do it consistently. So, just trying to learn that, it's better to be diversified. And that way you're able to just make the most out of your investing and out of the money that you save. Okay, moving on, budgeting. So this is so crucial, and yet it's so difficult, and you're not alone. Everyone has a difficult time budgeting. It's never fun. And oftentimes people have an idea of what they spend and they are wrong. The best way I have found in my experience of 20 plus years being a financial planner and advisor is to just download your checking account activity. Typically, people use their checking account for nearly everything. Even when they move money to their savings account, generally it's through their checking. When they pay their credit card, it's through their checking typically. So if you're one of these people, the vast majority of America, then you want to start there. What you can do is just go to your bank account, go on to your checking account activity, and download whole months of checking activity, at least 3 months, preferably over even a longer time period. Say, for example, last year. If you download all of last year or load year to date, but make sure it's whole months. So for example, ended August 31st or September 30th. And then you sort it by taking out, sorting it by amounts, and then just only looking at the negative, adding up all the negative, and then dividing it by the number of months that you've downloaded. Then you will get an idea of what you spend per month. That is absolutely crucial, and it's typically different than what you thought it would be. So if you start there, you know what you're spending. If it's more than what you're making and you're accruing credit card debt or whatnot, then things have to change. Then that's when you're going to want to start budgeting and cutting things off. So cutting subscriptions, memberships, maybe cutting, the Apple TV, deciding whether you want Apple TV, Netflix, or Amazon Prime, these kinds of things, maybe cutting out, going out or dining out as much, or Starbucks, and picking up that $6 drink versus, making a coffee at home. Just prioritizing. And at the end of the day, cutting out the things that, are lower on that list of priority, setting a monthly budget, and then keeping track by still downloading on occasion your checking account activity and whatnot, and figuring out, were you able to keep on budget? This is the, we included a link to a wonderful basic budgeting worksheet for your use. And if you're not able to write this down or save this, we definitely, can send you a copy of the presentation as mentioned. So please reach out to us and we can send that to you. Debt management. Try to be careful, right, when you're taking on debt, because not only are you paying for that debt and what you owe, but you're also paying for the interest rate, which currently is high. So if you do have a loan, which a lot of America does, don't be disheartened. Just make a plan around that student loan or car loan, mortgage or credit card debt. Make sure that you have a plan to pay that off and factor in the interest that you're paying for that. So there are websites, for example, the one that we just cited right here. You're able to go online and plug in what the interest rate for your loan is or loans are, and figure out, like a payment schedule and how long it will take to pay that off, even factoring in the interest. So that's really important, having an amortization schedule, so you can factor that in and have a true realistic idea of how long it's going to take you to pay off that debt. You're also going to want to categorize that debt. You're going to want to look at the interest rate for each of the loans that you have, see which one is highest. There are two different strategies for that. One strategy is starting with the smallest amount, and paying that off, and that way you get the momentum and you get to realize and see the fruit of all your hard labor. Another way is to look at the highest paying debt and then start there and work that off. And then some people do kind of put all their debt together and, consolidate their debt, be careful. Be aware that you don't get something for nothing. And, typically they tack on a certain lump sum kind of fee at the beginning. And that might be 3%, 4%, 5% for just consolidating that. So just be aware of that. Okay, so now we get to save now, pay later. This is a wonderful strategy in order to just avoid the high interest rates that are going on right now. That means that if you want to buy a new car and you want to swap out your old, your old Toyota Corolla, 2000 Toyota Corolla, whatever it might be, perhaps you drive that Toyota Corolla if it's not crazy expensive to fix, but maybe you drive that for longer and save the money that you would be spending in payments and car payments and socking that away either in an investment vehicle, a conservative investment vehicle or a balanced investment vehicle, or into your savings account and just sock that away and save it for a few years. Definitely try to get a higher interest bearing savings account if you're going to do that. And sock that away so that when it becomes the amount where you're able to pay cash for another vehicle, you will be able to negotiate, you will be able to save on all that interest that you would have paid. And, for example, if you're saving for a car, it might take you 3 years to save for a car instead of 5 years for car payments, right? So that's a wonderful way to just to cut down on expenses if you are saving versus making loan payments. And build your credit. It's so important to be able to build your credit. Either if you can't, if you're not getting approved for a regular credit card, doing a secured credit card, and then just building your credit over time, and then make sure that you pay off your credit cards every month, every month. And if you do have credit card debt, just pay that down. And then from there, pay off your credit cards every month. Treat your credit card like a debit card, right? Making sure you just don't spend more than you can pay off at the end of the month. And then try not to close your credit card, especially if you are young, because it will hit your credit. That doesn't mean use it. That just means, don't close it. And then definitely at least once a year, check your credit report. You can go on and to this website that we put on here, and you can get a free credit report every single year. You can also get a free credit report if someone checks your credit. Like if you're, you buy a new car or whatnot, and they're checking your credit, or you opened up a new credit card, you can get a free credit report. And I definitely recommend that. Saving for retirement. I know this sounds boring, trust me. But if you save for retirement now, you will be so happy in the future. You'll be thanking your past self. There are different ways to save for retirement. And it can be confusing. There is a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Traditional IRA has its own pros and cons. You put money in, you get a tax deduction, right? So it's pre-tax money that goes in, you get a tax deduction. That's great if you're in a higher tax bracket or if you're older, like an old fart like myself, right? But a Roth IRA is amazing. It is the best thing since sliced bread, or for you younger people, the best thing from, since the iPhone. This Roth IRA, you put money in, you don't get a tax break for it, for the money you put in, but that's okay because you're generally at a lower tax rate and the money grows tax free. All the money that you put in here into this Roth IRA grows and grows and grows. And when you take the money out, you don't pay any taxes on the growth and on the principal. It is a beautiful thing. And a lot of people can't do it. For example, I can't contribute to a Roth IRA because I'm in a higher tax bracket. Over here, you can. right? And so there's going to come a point if you become more and more successful where you're not going to be able to contribute into this Roth IRA. So do it now if you can. The one caveat is you can only contribute to a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA if you have earned income. So $7,000 is the max contribution for 2024. And that's if you are, younger than 50. And then there's the saver credit. Now, not a lot of people know about this savers credit. This is something amazing that we didn't have when I was younger. If you put money into a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, then you will get a tax credit if you do a tax return, which I highly recommend because you'll likely get a refund. And if you put money into a Roth IRA, the government will give you $1,000. If you put $1,000 in or more, they'll give you $1,000 if you're in the mid to low income tax bracket. So that's a wonderful benefit. If you want to know what the ranges for income are, please, reach out to us. But it typically means that if you're making 38,250 or less, more if you're married, and then more if you're head of household, if you're on your own. Okay, and then last but not least, certain exemptions, so the IRAs and 401ks, they're for retirement, but don't be too afraid. Don't be too afraid about putting money into an IRA or a 401k and thinking that it's untouchable until you are super old, because that's not necessarily the case. There are exemptions. For example, if you make a home purchase up to, you can take out up to $10,000 if you're using it for your first home purchase, and then higher qualified education expenses, or even if you're paying off student loans. So that's really nice. And then, if you have a child or you adopt a child, there's that exemption as well. And then, with Roth IRAs, there's even more flexibility. You're able to, take out money if you've had it for 5 years or longer. If you want the specifics about that, please let us know. Other tips. On top of what we've already discussed, I have other tips that I wish I knew when I was younger. Create a rainy day fund of at least 5 months worth of expenses. Have it sitting in a higher yielding savings account. Wasn't so important before when interest rates were low, but now interest rates are higher. You can get a decent savings account rate. You can check on bankrate.com. You can walk into your local branch. Oftentimes, honestly, you can get a better rate online, but be aware that you want to make sure that that bank that you go onto online is going to have good ratings, because oftentimes they don't. And then please don't just play with crypto and individual stocks. Please don't just speculate. Please, you can have a play account where you do that, but have a serious account where you invest seriously. Set financial goals, having goals, making things fun where you reach those goals. That's so important. And then the sooner that you start to save and invest, no matter how small, the better. So please save, invest, and you will have a successful future. I'm going to open up for questions. Matt, are there any questions?
Nope.
Okay, fantastic. All right, please reach out to us if you want to know more or if you want a copy of the presentation. Thank you so much.